All right, everybody. This is this is certainly another week of college football that happened. Week 6 was something. I'm telling you, do the Longhorns know where they are right now? Unranked. That's exactly where they are. Turnovers, bad offensive play calling, defense getting shellacked by multiple Florida wide receivers. Absolutely inexcusable. Same thing with Penn State losing to Nico Imalayava and UCLA. Inexcusable at this point. Both teams are now, with the top two, ranked teams, coming into the season. Now both are unranked. Both are unranked, which is an insane feat that hasn't happened in a long, long while. It hasn't happened in a long, long while. And I don't know how I don't know how worse it can get for both teams. But what I'm telling you is that Texas is a long, long road ahead, and it starts with Red River, with Oklahoma, with no John Mateer, of course. I have no idea who Oklahoma's trotting out at quarterback. Let me check real quick who they are trotting out at quarterback. Uh, it seems like Mateer is trying to play though, but we will see. You know, I don't know what Oklahoma is right now. To be quite honest with you, they don't look like a team that puts fear into anybody. Aside for the defense, which is saying a lot. A really really fun defense, which is saying a lot. Really says a lot. Which is true for a very good number of teams this season. A lot of good defenses and just some offenses that make me want to puke a little bit. But yeah, Texas, 2 losses, definitely not, out of it in the SEC race just yet, but definitely already kind of in that way of where, I don't think this team is going anywhere this year. Same thing with Penn State. James Franklin and Drew Aller are just not good at what they do. Like, I just don't understand the Drew Aller hype. I've never understood it. Just another Penn State quarterback that is mediocre at the end of the day. And this proved it, of course, also UCLA actually playing with a spine, like your spine is not bending and breaking. No, you actually play football. You play football for 4 quarters. You didn't get blown out, and you actually won the game. Just crazy, crazy stuff. And that knocked Penn State out of the rankings. That not, Florida beating Texas knocked them out, and Penn State losing to UCLA on one of the strangest couple last plays I think I've ever seen. Penn State tried to get something off and really couldn't do much of anything getting that last play off. And the plays that UCLA did make, were phenomenal. It's crazy. Speaking of things that are crazy, Iowa State finally lost. It was bound to happen at some point. But did you think it would be Brendan Sorsby and the Cincinnati Bearcats, who are surprisingly another team with only 1 loss in the Big 12, which is going to change very, very quickly because the Big 12 is a conference that does not make any sense right now. We're still pretty early into October. We're still pretty early. I mean, Texas Tech with Baron Morton, of course, at quarterback, just beat the brakes off of Houston too. So things are looking interesting. So Cincinnati had this game, basically locked up at halftime with a 16-point lead. But, of course, they allowed Iowa State to come back a little bit. Cincinnati was able to pull away at the very end. But, yeah, this is an Iowa State team that, it's still a pretty interesting team. They were able to put up, a pretty decent amount of points, but, it couldn't result in a W. And, the Big 12, again, crazy, crazy race right now. Like, you have Texas Tech leading, the Big 12, coming in with the number 9 rank in the nation. Insanity. Miami, all they had to do was take care of business. They did. Yeah, Florida State came back a little bit late, but ultimately, Cristobal will do what Cristobal will do, and that is almost make things worse than what they need to be. But Miami, won against Florida State, good enough. Same thing with Ohio State and teams like Texas A&M. They took care of business. There's some new teams in the college football AP poll rankings, like Memphis and USF. You know, like, did you expect, the Wahoos, the Cavaliers of Virginia to be ranked? And they were able to upset Louisville. Well, not upset Louisville because they were the ones that were ranked. They beat Louisville in overtime. Same. Louisville has Miller Moss. Would they back up because they had Chandler Morris out for like a play, and he had to sit out for a play, got rocked, and he had to sit out for a play. Thus, a backup had to come in and win the game more. Just that's crazy to me, crazy. And then Vanderbilt had way too many turnovers against Alabama, and honestly, the turnovers were enough for Bama to get the win. Bama's offense still isn't that great, to be quite honest with you. They're good enough to put up a bunch of yards, but points when Vanderbilt, was being bended, they did not break as far as, defense was concerned, because there were too many field goals in that game by the Crimson Tide. Too many field goals, It's not a recipe for success, later on down the line when you really get into the meat of SEC play. But I mean, again, the Tide scored 30 and Vanderbilt only 14. The score is a little bit deceptive, but again, Vanderbilt had multiple opportunities in the red zone and did not convert them at all. So, yeah, that's basically week 6 in a nutshell. Again, a couple of other things of note, like Notre Dame, winning again, Michigan winning a sloppy one, Georgia beating Kentucky because, of course, Georgia beats Kentucky. Why is anybody surprised at that? And Illinois beating Purdue and BYU winning as well on Friday night. So, yeah, week 7 is finally here. Got Tuesday night, Wednesday night, but that's CUSA stuff. Nobody cares about that. The real meat of the thing is, those USF Bulls taking on Drew Mestamaker and the North Texas Mean Green, baby. My Mean Green, my alma mater. The Mean Green are looking to get into the top 25, unbeaten, 5-0, blackout night inside the DAC. It's crazy that this Friday night game would be the blackout game, and I can't go to it. I want to go so bad, but alas, I have work, so I ain't gonna be able to make it. But I will be able to watch this game. It is a Friday night game on ESPN2, and it's gonna start off the festivities this weekend, where you have Florida State still being ranked despite losing to Miami. Alabama, Missouri should be interesting. Bo Prabula and Ty Simpson facing off against one another. Really, really fun Missouri offense with Ahmad Hardy in the backfield in Alabama, with a pretty interesting, group. Jeremy Bernard, Ryan Williams. It's an interesting group, wide receivers. The Illabuck, for the first time in 8 years, is being contested. It'll be in Illinois for another big noon kickoff with Ohio State, Julian Sayin, Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith, and those Ohio State Buckeyes take on Luke Altmaier and number 17, Illinois, fighting the Illini. And it should be another fun game, this one. Illinois has an offense that can do some damage, but, again, the big question is, can they do it against Ohio State's defense, which has been proven, in their games so far in Big Ten play against Washington, Minnesota, that, ain't gonna be a lot of luck scoring on this team. You're gonna have to try a little harder than that. Other notables, early is like Ole Miss taking on Washington State, but like Ole Miss is ranked number 4. They're not in the meat of SEC play yet. They're getting there because they already took on LSU, but The Red River game, again, like I said, this is basically Texas's season right here. Oklahoma's number 6 in the nation. A lot of eyes will still be on this game. It'll be at the Cotton Bowl, of course. I will be at work during this game. So, once this game starts, I'll still be in Richardson. So, it's gonna be a game. It's going to happen. Is this going to be one of the uglier games in the series? Absolutely. Can Texas's defense bounce back? Is the big question because Florida raked them over the coals this past weekend. I don't think Oklahoma has the firepower like that on offense. Even with Mateer coming back, he is a run, threat quarterback as well. But, if things are looking up to where he can come back, that may spell a little bit more disaster for Texas. But honestly, if Arch can't improve, you got to get the backup in. We got to get the play calling to look a little bit better than what it's been, or we just got to do something as far as like getting Arch out of there for right now. Like he's not looking too good. Another big one: Fernando Mendoza, Dante Moore. That is all that needs to be said. Noah Whittington, Elijah Sherrod. That is all that needs to be said. Big time game, top 7 matchup, beautiful. Indiana and Oregon. Kurt Cignetti's Indiana Hoosiers are looking like a team. Dan Lanning's Oregon Ducks. My goodness, this is a matchup of matchups right here. This is a beautiful matchup. Like, wow. Let's see. Michigan USC. Bryce Underwood's okay. I'd say Justice Haynes is more the guy, in the backfield doing the things. Jake Mayava, of USC, looking to get those wide receivers involved. It should be a fun one on Saturday night. Auburn's offense, whatever you want to call that offense, is playing Georgia, number 10 Georgia. Just wanted to let you know that the game is happening. And then Texas Tech, Kansas, again, the Big 12 is chaotic. Jalen Daniels is still at Kansas, which is crazy. Like, Nance has been there for like 6 years, but, it is what it is. Can Florida, upset Texas A&M? No idea. No idea at all if they can. But, this is the same Florida team that beat Texas last week. So maybe Billy Napier, is really the answer at Florida after all. And Arkansas, lowly Arkansas is playing Tennessee, potential trap game, not going to lie. Norris Sellers in South Carolina playing LSU. Remember when we all had South Carolina making the playoffs? Remember when I had South Carolina making the playoffs? Yeah, that ain't happening, big dog. But again, this LSU offense is so pitiful, Garrett Nussmeier. And Brian Kelly's just like, we could do something. We could try, but, trying ain't good enough. That's basically the gist of what I got from one of his last press conferences. Like he's trying to get this team, motivated to, get an offense going, but it's like it's not working. It's just not working. And that LSU game, and I mean that Ole Miss game proved that for LSU. It proved that was the case. And then a couple of Big 12 matchups to kind of, end week 7 with BYU, Arizona, and Arizona State, back in the top 25 as they really never should have left, but, they were so lowly ranked before they got knocked out the top 25. And they're playing Utah again. Like I'm telling you, there are some things that are crazy right now in college football. Like we have a cluster of AAC teams, that are looking really, really good. Navy, Memphis, UNT, my UNT Mean Green, South Florida, and Tulane. Don't forget about Tulane with Jake Retzlaff. He's still cooking. The ACC itself, Georgia Tech and Miami are unbeaten. Georgia Tech, is they're playing. Who are they playing this week? They're playing Virginia Tech. Notre Dame is playing NC State on Peacock, which is crazy. But yeah, Big 12, absolute chaos in this conference right now. When you have BYU, Texas Tech, Arizona State, and Cincy, with Iowa State also, in there. It's like the teams that are, mediocre, like Kansas State, can still put up a fight, or Colorado still put up a fight. Like it's not, there's going to be a lot of dog fights because right now, again, a lot of teams have just one loss or two overall. And it's like, there's things that are happening. There's things that are going to be happening. Again, there's a little bit of separation starting to be in the Big Ten. Same thing with the SEC. There are some other teams that you may want to watch out for, like Fresno State, UNLV, in the Mountain West. That's basically it, really, as far as, like teams to watch out for, because, those are like the only other two teams worth even mentioning. But yeah, week 6 done, week 7, we're getting there. We're getting there. So yeah, that'll do it from me. College football week 7. It's right around the corner. Can't wait for it. Ready.